Hey everyone, I'm Tauqeer. So I've been a developer operations engineer and CTOs, and today, and also I lead Grafana Friends Delhi region in the India region, right? So today we have Simon, the developer advocate is Grafana Labs. So glad to have you, Simon. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, thanks to be here. Well, good to be here. It's relatively early morning here in England, so I'm based in Nottingham in England. I quite often work US Eastern time, so this is quite early for me. But we're up and about, and it's good daylight. So yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's in India. It's almost like afternoon, and people are working so stuff around. So how's things going at Grafana Labs? How are you people doing? And at least asking, how's life going?
Um, it's so I've been with Grafana for just over a year now. So I've gone from that point of I'd used Grafana dashboarding before joining, but I didn't really know anything about any of the products or the other parts of the stack. So I've spent all of my time at the company sort of learning about those and producing content as I go. It's reasonably busy. Well, it's always busy, but it's reasonably busy at the minute, but it was busier recently. We just had GrafanaCon. I was quite involved in that this year. We have something called Science Fest, which is like people can bring dashboarding projects and you get a little booth and you get to talk to attendees and demonstrate it. So I did that with an aircraft tracking project that shows all of the aircraft in the local area, both on a map and statistics, and had to learn a lot about that. And then recently we've launched something called Unprompted, which is like another Grafana blog. It's actually on Medium, so it's not on our regular website. And it's more for, you're not going to get things like there's a new release of Tempo announcements on there. You're going to get things like projects that Grafana staff have been working on or technology aspects that we're interested in. So I had something go up there yesterday about a project that I did with the TV show The Traitors that I've been doing talks about. So that sort of stuff's been keeping me busy. And then also in developer advocacy, we've worked a lot on what are called interactive learning, Grafana Pathfinder guides, which is you go into a context in Grafana, you bring up the help, and it can walk you through with buttons and highlighting user elements in the UI. I've been writing a lot of those guides for dashboards in Grafana Play, which is our sandbox. So I'm not a traditional DevOps person, so I've been coming at all of this from like, let's build a dashboard and visualize non-traditional things.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like you have been non-directly from the quite old generation of DevOps stuff because being here at NCRTs, I had been working on those not only on recent DevOps tools but also on on-prem systems as well. So that has been a quite in and out for me as a DevOps engineer. And indeed, the time I started working with the Grafana shifts, so I try to visit some of the Grafana Friends Delhi meetups in the Delhi region, and there I got a chance like to host along with the co-organizer to Grafana Delhi meetup. And yeah, so I'm here in front of you doing some sort of
Yeah,
information session for the folks.
I think that's something else we have in common. So I've also been helping to host Grafana and Friends London. And then I've been helping to set up Grafana and Friends Manchester. So the problem we have in the UK is a lot of things are London centric. I live like 2.5 hours away from London, and so do lots of people. So we wanted to start something somewhere else. Started Manchester, and we're hoping to build that up. So yeah, I've also been involved quite a lot with the various and Friends communities.
Cool. Like to all the friends who are there in Manchester area and the London area, you know whom to catch up. Simon, if you're around the India Delhi region, just let me know. We'll be having some lunch around at the meetup. There you go. So Simon, we have the topic that you was presenting, where we had a discussion. Would you love to go ahead and get a quick around what's all about is that and how exactly we can dive more into that topic, the Grafana chefs. The stage is yours, and we'll have to have the question in between as well. Over to you, Simon.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk about some of the work I've been doing with building dashboards with what I'm going to call non-traditional data sources.
Yeah,
So
perfect. Exactly.
it's
And
probably
also, and some of the stuff which we had been discussing over the chat that you would be presenting around, like, hey, we could present this project and something like that. Up to you.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably know, Grafana sort of traditionally is used for visualizing things like Prometheus metrics or time series, and it's traditionally been used in things like data centers. So I know nothing about those things. So I've started building stuff with Grafana that you'll sort of see behind me. I'm kind of interested in IoT stuff. There's some random Raspberry Pi things usually living behind there. This is a big electromagnetical sign from a
Oh,
bus that's programmable. That can actually receive Grafana alerts, but that's a whole other story for another day. So what I've been doing a lot of is working with what we call the Infinity plugin, which is like the everything else data source. It's JSON, it's GraphQL, it's CSV, all of those things. And I've been working with data sources that maybe data scientists would use. So other things like Google Sheets and non-traditional, non-time series databases. So what I was going to do was, let's just bring the screen share up here.
absolutely. Yes, yes.
So,
Because
there we go.
we would love to share a couple of stuffs in our region as well. Like, you have been more into the IoT, and I see the stuffs because in our Delhi region we have started with one more thing, which is the hardware club.
Nice. Yeah, good idea.
The hardware club integrate all of those people who are building into IoT stuff, the hardware and electronics person. They come up, they enjoy, they listen, and try to iterate their knowledge, their hands-on directly on the board there. And we are the folks who learn from them. We are from the software background, we learn from them. So that is a cool idea developed by the creators.
Yeah, so I'll show you something during the course of this that one of the first things I built after I joined Grafana that actually does use Prometheus. It uses Prometheus Remote Write, and I'm recording environmental data from around the office that I work in and the house that I live in on little bits of hardware, sending it to Grafana Cloud, and you can sort of see over the course of the day or the month what the trends in the house are. But we'll get to that. But what we have here is Grafana Play. It's play.grafana.org. This is kind of a great place to come if you want to learn something about Grafana or how it works, because there's loads of sample dashboards on here and you can dig in and see how they work without damaging anything. So you can look at the queries and stuff. Importantly for the community, you see here we have dashboard of the month, and it's currently the World Cup dashboard. This was actually built by Paul, who does work for Grafana. But if you are active in the community Slack and you build a cool dashboard, then we can either link to it or rebuild it on Play with you. And we have like a community dashboard of the month. So more often than not, that is someone from the community. This month, it happens to be a Grafana staff member. So what I've got on here is a whole load of different dashboards. What I've been working with a lot, as I said, was the Infinity plugin, which basically allows you to visualize APIs. So, this is a good fun topic to do workshops with. We have content for workshops for the community for this. And so what we said we'd look at to start with is fairly simple example of that. So this is a dashboard that I used to live in New Zealand. If you live in New Zealand, it's kind of important to know what's going on with the volcanoes and the earthquakes, because they happen all the time and you need to be aware of it. So the New Zealand government has this thing called GeoNet, which is GeoNet. It's a fairly dry site because it's government. But the interesting thing is they publish an API, so we can make this bigger, and you can see here's some information about what's going on with the volcanoes and the earthquakes at the minute. And then how do we visualize that with Grafana? Well, I built a dashboard that a lot of what we have to talk to people about with dashboarding is telling a good story. So you want like your important big stuff, big picture stuff at the top, and then the detail sort of as you scroll down. So people can wander past this and go, oh, okay, there was an earthquake most recently, however long ago that was. And then there was a big one on Sunday, and these were in slightly different places. And then like individual earthquakes, because they're relatively small, not that really important. But what you want to look at is the trend. So here we have a heat map where you can see the North Island of New Zealand at the minute is quite earthquakey, and the South Island is pretty quiet on that front. Quite often that could be the other way around. And then we can see that information again on a GeoJSON feed, another standard format that Grafana understands. And we can start to aggregate some of it into bar graphs. So what I've been spending a lot of my time at Grafana looking at is kind of like teaching people, because it's a relatively new concept, how do we go from here, so this data, to here without having to put it into a database in the meantime. So, we could upload all of this. We could write something that pushes this into like Loki or one of Mimir, one of Grafana's other products, or we could put it in a time series database somewhere. But I've been working with what's called the Infinity plugin. And if we edit this panel here, you'll see here we can basically say, I want to go and get this URL. I want to parse it with JQ, which is a standard for parsing JSON. And in here, we have a JQ expression that reformats that data. And then we end up with a table that looks like this. And then from there, we can just do normal Grafana stuff, right? We can pick these and we can run transforms on it. Here we've got a geomap visualization. Yeah, that's largely what I've been doing. I've got some projects that sort of go over and above this. So the general pattern that I've been working with and teaching people with and writing content about is, you can pull stuff in from APIs. You can mix it up with other data sources. You should probably be gentle to your API. So like if every one of these panels hit the API and we had a rate limit, we might have a problem with that because the dashboard starts to hammer the API. So if you see here, we can pull data from just another panel. So here I've got one API call that goes out every time we load this. It loads the data set completely into that one panel that has the map on it. And then all of these other ones pull data from there and run transforms on it. So here we're just, for example, pulling out a single feed magnitude, and we're just showing the latest value of it. So yeah, I'd encourage people to look at Play and look at how these dashboards work. I said that in developer advocacy, we've been working a lot with interactive learning as well. So a lot of these dashboards on Play and other bits of the product now, if you go up to here, it's sort of not very obvious, but I'm in the top right corner and you can see there's a question mark in the circle. If I click this, I can open up what's called an interactive guide when there is one. So these are things that we've been writing in developer advocacy. And what happens here is we can read a bit about this. It's like documentation, but I can go click this show me button. You see the big orange thing that's come up there?
Simon, I have a question around. Would you love to elaborate more about these stuffs like the developer advocacy? What exactly that has been elaborated here?
How do you mean, sorry?
Exactly, like these stuffs you do as a job role and profile, right? So what exactly it does and what are the impacts here?
So what are we doing this sort of thing for?
Correct.
Yeah. So we're doing this for a couple of reasons. One, to sort of scale our team's ability to teach people the product, and also in the longer term, so that imagine this was one of your dashboards in your organization that means something to you and you built it. Your people that built it will be able to write one of these guides and their JSON documents, and they would then be able to essentially, have something that's in the product that shows people what the dashboard does, what it means, And this interactive learning concept extends beyond that. So it can be things like how to add a data source in the way that your organization likes data sources being added, and it can check things were done. So here it's doing fairly simple things like, we've scrolled to here and we're showing me what I'm talking about in this bit of the guide. So we can use this to run workshops in developer advocacy. If you're running Grafana in your business, you can use it for like staff onboarding or sort of ensuring that people stick to policies or whatever it is.
Oh, cool. Gotcha.
This has been like a major thing that we've worked on in the last year. Mostly not myself. We have a team that actually built this plugin for Grafana.
Oh, cool. Gotcha. So you and a team as a developer advocacy try to reiterate and understand the concepts and build around these stuffs and get more around the resolution part. This is cool.
It's a little bit, developer advocacy built this plugin to solve some of the problems we were having with doing developer advocacy. It's a lot easier to teach a workshop with fewer teaching assistants when everybody's got this, and you can be like, okay, have you all done section 4? And I can walk around and be like, yeah, it's green. They've all done section 4. This is great.
Okay. Yeah, I absolutely understand this stuff, because when you have the sort of example, we have the courses around ready that you get a chance to make people or the audience move around these topics, right? And you can tell them like, hey, this is where we had built. So this is a settled example, and we can along work on a certain workshop. Like this is what we are saying currently as well, right?
Yeah. So if you take sort of work that I've been doing, if we go back to play here, and let's go find, there's a folder in here called Where the Cool Dashboards Live, which is where you'll find the cool dashboards. One of the big projects that I've been working on was this, which if you've seen the TV show, The Traitors, I'm sorry if you haven't seen the UK series 4 and you're interested in it, because I've just given away all of the results with this dashboard. But you can see this is quite a complicated dashboard that shows you stats about the show and a timeline of the players, and then what's going on with each player and who they voted for. This is pretty cool. Yeah, this uses Google Sheets as its data source, but it could be anything. And it uses something called SQL Expressions. So something relatively new in Grafana that I've been doing a lot of advocacy for is we can pull in data from a Google Sheet and we just get everything. And then we can run a SQL expression over it like it was in a database. So we can do a lot of complicated transforms in one SQL expression.
Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely. In our code base as well, we try to get around the sort of matrices and logs. We get an endpoint, create the matrices loop or the function. We get the matrix, get to the prompt areas, make a data deliverable, and present on a Grafana dashboard. So this is what we have done. You have started a proper data source, which is an Excel sheet, and through that we are getting the data, right?
Yeah. So here my data looks like, if we click this link, we should be able to see it. And it needs to verify it's me, even though it's public, but it knows I've been on this computer. But there you go. So the data is very, very basic for this. It's just every episode, every player, what happened. So it looks like a table. And then when we bring it into here, normally we'd have to put loads and loads of different transforms in a big transform chain. Okay. But to get something like this, like who received the most votes and are they still in the game? So these orange people were still in the game at the end. It's actually quite a complicated SQL expression here. So you can do really complicated stuff in SQL. You can do subclauses and windows and common table expressions and everything. And you'll probably look at this and go, this is really complicated. I'll never be able to do this. But neither can I. So I'm not that good at SQL, but Grafana Assistant is. So a lot of this dashboard's queries were written with Grafana Assistant just by prompting it, because it can see the data in the spreadsheet. It's inferred a schema for it, which is what you see over here. We can write this that saves us potentially a huge chain of complicated transforms. And at the start, I sort of said I'm not from the DevOps Kubernetes world. This sort of way of querying data makes more sense to people who are, say, data analysts or data scientists. So this feature opens up Grafana to a lot of people, and we can do joins across different data sources and all sorts. But yeah, this also relates to what I was saying about interactive learning. So this one has an interactive learning capability as well. So we could bring up the learning guide for that. But it's also got somewhere, let's see. Yeah. We've also gone ahead and built an entire GitHub repo, which is a workshop for building this dashboard and working with this data. So what's in the repo here is a bunch of exercises and the data that you need if you want to use your own Google Sheet or what have you. But that interactive learning that we looked at before makes it much easier to build and deliver these workshops at things like meetups and so forth, because we can see where people are up to with things, and we can see they've got the right thing. You know, the interactive learning can also check, like, does this panel show something, or does it meet certain conditions? To some extent, that's something we're still working on. But yeah, that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on, as well as I was talking about IoT stuff earlier. If we go to my own personal Grafana stack, you can see it's currently quite hot in the house here. We've got a number of different rooms. So here in the office where I'm sat, it's 24.9 degrees, relatively low humidity. This is like a more traditional Grafana dashboard. So this uses the data's coming from Mimir, so Prometheus, essentially. But the data got there from some small Raspberry Pi Pico devices running MicroPython and using Prometheus Remote Write to push it there. So yeah, you were saying you've been working with some hardware people. That's something I really enjoyed doing as well. Is I've taken this out on the road. I've got 30-something sets of the actual hardware for various reasons that I can hand out and do in-person workshops with, and everyone gets a Grafana Cloud account, sets up their API token, pushes data, and then it becomes a dashboarding exercise of what do you want to build about your environment. Yeah, I've been helping people.
I see a lot of hardware stuff surrounding the house. Like you've been totally into the IoT.
Yeah, I've sort of, how I first got into Grafana was I actually worked for a company that was managing electrical demand in hotels, and we built a lot of sensor stuff that sat on things that could be switched on and off, so air conditioning units, swimming pool heaters, fridges, all of that sort of stuff. And I first sort of discovered Grafana a number of years ago by needing something to visualize all of that. And at the time, we happened to put all of our data into BigQuery, so that was a really good fit with, you know, one of the Grafana data sources. But this is entirely Grafana Cloud, so it's going into Mimir in the cloud in my cloud account. And you can run a pretty good approximation of this in the free trial, because you get obviously enough metrics, and you probably don't need a very, very long storage period. Yeah, like you probably want to look at like the last week or something. So you can see here, you know, it gets light during the daytime and dark at night. And you can do all of that in the free trial.
Oh, this is all right. Like in the Grafana's enterprises and OS has a lot of differences, but in the OSS as well, we get a lot of free things, which help us as a community to grow, and which has been a key part in the Grafana as well, which I had been saying from last 2 years. So kudos and thanks to Grafana and the team, Simon as well.
Yeah, I think you know, you sort of asked me about this before as well. The other thing that I've done a bit during my time here is I've done a few small pull requests to like Grafana or panels, and sort of done some small contributions. Because one of the things that we encourage the community to do is, you know, contribute software to our open source solutions. So I've been making sure that I've been through that process a few times so I understand it. So, for example, we've got something like, let's see, I don't know if you've used the Grafana Canvas panel before, but it allows you to press buttons and call APIs. So it's one way that you can interact with things. So when I press this, for example, that went away and called an API that updated a counter in a Redis instance somewhere. And if you see the message over there, that originally, when I started playing with this, just said API call successful or API call failed, and it was hard coded into Grafana. So, an example of a little pull request that the community could get involved in fairly easily is I changed that so this message is configurable, because if I'm using this as a control panel to control some business process and I want to see meaningful feedback, API call successful doesn't mean anything to me. It's just an internal thing. And generally, because I love memes and silly things, if we keep pushing it really good and adding 1,000, what you'll eventually get on here is the image change because it went over 9,000.
Cool.
So again, this is the sort of like silly thing that I set out to do to learn something. I wanted to learn the canvas button, found something I didn't like about it. I didn't like that this wasn't configurable. So, learned how to do a PR, made it configurable. It's relatively, if we click one of these here, somewhere in here, this panel's got a really, really complicated,
Actually, yes, seems
complicated
complicated
thing.
to me as well. I also checked this out, like trying to figuring out from your assistance, like what exactly it is. Simon, I have one more stuff to ask, like from quite a time. Like, how did Grafana Play come into an action, and what was the real motive and the stuffs, the ideation of Grafana Labs behind it? Would love to go ahead and explain that.
Yeah. So let's just drop interactive learning and let's bring up somebody else's work. So here's the World Cup dashboard, which is on Grafana Play. This is the current community dashboard. So how did Play come about? I believe it's partly to build a showcase for different ideas and different things you can do with Grafana. It was partly to allow this sort of behavior. So if I start an incognito window and go to Play here, I'm now nobody. I'm not logged in, but I can go to, I'll pick one of my dashboards because I know what I'm looking at then. I can go to, for example, this dashboard that pulls information about trains at a certain station in Chicago. And what you'd not normally expect to be able to do as an anonymous user, just somebody on the internet, is go in here and look at stuff. So I can go in here and actually see how it works. So like the key point of Play is that you, me, or anybody can find one of these and not look at it and go, that's pretty. I wonder how it works. I hope they built a blog post or I hope they made a video. You can actually go in and you can see, here's the query. It actually comes from another panel. Here's the transformation. And obviously you can't change anything, but you can see what is going on. So the aim was to give people sort of some inspiration, but also that they can actually look into a little bit more than if I just shared, say, a public link on my own Grafana stack to a dashboard where you can't edit it. It's essentially read only. And as I understand it, Play had also become a little bit of a sort of everybody's sandbox for everything. But my colleague Marie and Pepe have done a really good job with sort of tidying it up and giving it focus in the last year. So it's now aiming to be that sort of shop window for Grafana things, and also like learn from us by looking at how we did it.
This seems really interesting to get more around.
Yeah, I mean,
If,
yeah, I showed you the community dashboard for this month, and it's a staff member one. It's the World Cup one. Like I say, more often than not, it's either a dashboard that a community member has shared, or we found them sharing somewhere on the socials. So, we do look. If you share a Grafana dashboard and mention the company or us, we'll come and find you. And some of those have to stay where they are, so they're on your own Grafana stack. But if they're using fairly public information, they get put into play here, and then you've got um, a nice portfolio piece. You can sort of say, Grafana took my dashboard and used it as a demonstration. And we have loads and loads of data sources in here. So
now that's a thing to raise.
yeah, it's a really good promotional thing. So we've had people do like railway stuff, wind power. We've had obviously the World Cup and events-based things. I do a lot of events-based ones. We've got other stuff like I did one here that's quite timely at the minute. It looks at electricity generation. So where we are right now, I'm in the East Midlands. So let's have a look at that. What's this telling us? Here we go. So at the minute, most of the electricity that's powering me being able to be on this call is coming from wind and then solar, and then biomass, which is burning wood, actually, and then a little bit of natural gas. But yeah, if it was much hotter than this and everyone was running their fans and stuff, you would find that we get a much higher carbon intensity. This goes red, and I probably shouldn't be using so much electricity because it's from dirty sources. And this is a project that I did for Play as a dashboard, but it also would make a really good Grafana alerting project, right? So like alert me when the number is really high, so I should turn things off, or alert me when the number is really low, so I should like start charging the car battery or running the washing machine or the dishwasher or what have you.
I totally understand, Simon. Like I have something like to ask here is that how do you all get the ideas? Like I have been in my organization, we have a lot of chefs because we are into a fintech. We have a lot of pressure every day to create dashboard, to check every ATM systems if they're up and running and all. And in midst of that, you come up and show a smartest of the stuffs around. Like hey Tauqeer, and hey community, you can build this stuff and have enjoyment. So how did you get all these ideas?
A lot of this is needing good and clean data, especially for developer advocacy, where I can't go on a 3-month project of like, I want to build this thing out, but I'm going to need to spend 6 weeks writing some sort of like data cleansing system first. So I tend to keep a good lookout for APIs or public data sets. So nearly everything we've looked at is an API. But if we looked at, for example, this one here, governments publish a reasonable amount of information. Some of it's quite dull, but this is for Great Britain. It's information about who's using which railway station. So London Liverpool Street is the most used railway station. Most people going through there go to Tottenham Court Road on the tube. And then I was like, well, okay, we're a very London-centric country, so let's have a look at something else. Let's look at what happens if you remove all the London stuff from the data. So actually Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Glasgow, and Edinburgh then become the busiest places. So what does this tell us? Maybe we should do more meetups and things in these places, because that's where the people are that isn't London. So this came from government data, and this is just CSV that's built into the dashboard here. So really, I spend a lot of my time starting to figure out stories like this from finding APIs, data sets. Sometimes, it's just make it yourself. So with the Traitors, this was like an actual real-time event in January. So every day there was an episode of the show. I would go and update this, and then the dashboard would fill out a little bit more, and we'd tweet it out to the public again. And and so on.
Cool, cool. I understand here.
So yeah, a lot of it is that, but then it also needs to be tied back into something that people are doing for business. So, this sort of thing obviously looks a little bit like it could be the health of your data center, or it could be the health of your checkout process. And this could be something to do with pathing or routing, or you might be running a bus company and what are our most popular routes, or what have you. This is like, I want to see the result of something or the current state of something, and be able to affect it without leaving Grafana immediately. And then, even things like the, obviously GeoNet will be something like, again, I might want an alert when an earthquake happens with a certain magnitude. Although by the time I got the alert, I'd probably know about it because I'd have felt it. So yeah, that's
This is an intelligent move, like Simon.
sorry.
That's pretty amazing and intelligent move, I must say. Like tackling all those stuff and observing what are the data available, because I used to do back in my second or fourth year of my bachelor's, like collecting every stuff around what we can build. I used to do something on Power BI as well. That's a Microsoft product as well.
Yep.
So how we can iterate every stuff and make tables, make awesome charts and applications. So I should do that. Then I got into the Grafana stuff. Like, hey, if you're into a DevOps, this is how we are reading the matrix. Apart from reading the matrix, the time you share or any developer advocacy team shares something from the Grafana, like this is the fun element you can do with the Grafana. I try to do that, and hey, it becomes fun. Apart from my job stuff, it becomes fun.
Yeah, it also the other aspect of it is, so one end is to start at the data. The other end for developer advocacy is start at what feature I want to demonstrate. So with the Traitors, it was SQL Expressions. With something I'm working on, let's see if we can find that. Discard this. With something I'm working on at the minute, we have a new panel called a GraphViz, which is a way of visualizing data using a standard diagramming. So it uses what are called dot diagrams, which is a standard that I don't know too much about at the minute. You can kind of see this one's just got static data down here. But what I'm trying to show in this for a project that I'm working on at the moment is, if you've ever played the old racing game Outrun, you drive a Ferrari and there's 5 stages, and at the end of each stage you can go left or right. So at the end of Coconut Beach you can go to Gateway or Devil's Canyon. What I'm trying to do is use logql data from Loki to record people playing the game and see what decisions they make. And then this is essentially a different sort of heat map using this new GraphViz panel that, everybody plays stage 1 because that's where you start. So it's pretty red. It's had the most visits. And then people generally get to stage 2 or stage 3. By the time you get to stage 4 and 5, the numbers are dropping off a bit. Again, this is a silly example with a game, but it might be like your e-commerce process flow. How far through do people get before they drop off? And that might involve like Grafana front end observability and all sorts of things. So there's like 2 ends to developing a story for developer advocacy. You can either find the data or find the thing that you want to demonstrate, and then try and work it back to have some data that demonstrates that. It's a bit like doing a physics experiment. You either like decide what result you want and then find some data that supports it, or start with the data and see where it leads you.
Actually, this had been my mindset back in January 2025 when I was getting turned around into different organization. I was building different applications, and through whatever I do, take the matrices out of that and try to build an dashboard which is easy accessible to those folks who are looking into me to get into their organization. And one of them got around me and they asked me like, hey Tauqeer, you are building good stuff around, would love to have you around, let's get it interviewed. So this is how the story started, from the Grafana friends to different organization. So this is what I love in the community: you spread it and you get it.
Yeah, I think also, I've sort of done a few jobs. I've also been the interviewer for a few jobs. If you've got something visual and interesting that you can talk about, it makes everybody's life a lot easier with interviewing and that sort of thing, because I've got something I can look at beforehand and ask you questions about. You've got something you're confident to talk about. It doesn't become this like stress test of answer some random questions. So I always love working with people who've got this sort of stuff. The other thing that I've done a little bit of in my time at Grafana has been working with student hackathons. And we set, like a Grafana challenge for that. And when I'm doing it, it's just something really high level. It's like, tell me a story about your data. So we're looking for people to build something interesting with a dashboard, and then have like they can look at it and tell me what's going on based on it, and why they've chosen things, and what the visual aids are. So you can't always use color because some people are colorblind, so you might use size, or you might use um, just great big stat panels, or something like that. And then at the end of that, they've got a really nice artifact from doing that that's in a free cloud thing that they can go and take to a job interview, and that's all great.
That is great, Simon. I actually tell folks to, like, when you are in an interview,
Mhm.
get something prepared out of the knowledge. Present your some of your projects where you can have a talk around at least for an hour till you get to know what's got the core stuff they had been asking out. So that will not only leverage your show your technical skills, but also leverage your time into that interview. Like, hey, on what we are talking on. So that gives a brownie point in that interview set. And for the shooting
Yeah.
hackathon, I always admire Fox. If you're building, try building user mind. That's your total time. And Simon is here. Would love to add anything.
And well, yeah, I mean, also, if you do it in a way that you can give the interviewer or the company a URL, and they'll end up sharing it internally. It's a lot more context when you're passing that person around between multiple interviewers to be like, oh yeah, that was the one that did that thing that was really cool, and we can actually go see it. Um, so yeah, I'm not a fan of like take home tests and things like that. But if you're doing projects and you want to learn stuff anyway, um, go do it. And I think also don't, um, as long as you can sort of discuss the what's and the whys of it, don't be too scared to get help from like the assistants that are now available. So you know, I built a complicated SQL Expressions database dashboard for the Traitors. I still don't know all that much about SQL, but the assistant does and the LLMs do. Um, but I knew what I wanted, and I know what looks good, and I know why I was trying to do it. I think, yeah,
Exactly.
don't worry too much about getting help.
Exactly. There were some of the stuffs I wanted to learn. I had been at that moment. I had been using GitHub Copilot with the cloud
Mhm.
models on it. I iterated each and every code basis to the matrices to find out all the messages where it could be, and it prepared a dashboard. Then afterwards, if you remember, like back in July or August last year, I had been working on Grafana MCP. So I
Mhm.
made a video on that as well. So how you can integrate your Grafana MCP, how you can connect it with your VS Code, pulse it, and how you are giving a command to a GitHub Copilot, and how it is creating the dashboards. So how fun it is. Learn, explore, and share it.
Yeah, I mean that's partly some of the rationale behind. I'll just bring this up again. Being able to run queries like this is LLMs and other tools can understand how to build these a lot better than they could, click through this or add all of the JSON that you need in a dashboard for all of these transforms. So where you can do some work in here, it's both appealing to more humans because people have been working with SQL for a long time, but it's very appealing to either our assistant that's built in or to other ones that you can use through other methods like the MCP servers and so on. So yeah, I think you sort of start to see it driving this sort of thing driving the product. And again, it's like, is it wrong to get the AI to write that for you for an interview thing? only if you can't explain what it's doing. Yeah, if
Exactly.
you can
This is
figure
what
it
I
out and
mean. Obviously, this is what I mean as well. If you're not able to explain it, that's not the point here. You should be understanding. If you are taking the help, understand it. Take the understanding and documentation from the AI as well, no problem. But it would be rather casting like go ahead with the documentation. Know what AI has done for you. That will not only speed up your knowledge stuff to grab on, but also help you to create more use cases. You can ask AI like, "Hey, if this is a possibility, what else could be done?" I used to learn in this way.
yeah, and yeah, especially as we're now sort of working in a more distributed environment than ever more. You don't necessarily have someone else that you can just be like, "Hey, can I just talk to you about this for a minute?" So sometimes it's useful to solve those. Am I inventing problems in my own head? Things when you sat on your own, but
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I mean, that has been a most enormous stuff when you like, yeah, exactly. Human in the loop and human intervention is needed. If you are getting sufficient with the AI steps and it is helping out, just use it. Go ahead. There's nothing into that, right? So that's
mm.
an advantage.
So
And
if you go from, for example, to this, I built the actual dashboard pretty much by hand. So I decided what I wanted to show, and all of this stuff, and had Assistant help me with the expressions. But once I've got this dashboard, I was then able to, let's go back here, uh, to, and I only finished this yesterday, so I don't think anyone's really seen this. It's not on play just yet. I was then able to build this thing, which is a lot of similar concepts. So it's another Google spreadsheet. It's the Eurovision Song Contest, which, if folks don't know, is an international song contest where you get votes from either the public, they phone in, or a professional jury, and whoever gets the most points wins. So there's lots of information about who got the most points or who got the least. I'll scroll down to, for balance, the United Kingdom are famously not very good at this competition. We came dead last with a single point. But what I wanted to show here was some of the new Grafana stuff. So tabs, the ability to arrange this without lots of scrolling, or I'm keeping data together. And the tabs appear in the URL here, so I could send you a link to be like, here's the United Kingdom's voting record right into that one panel in the database. But the point is, having built this one pretty much by hand, I was able to get Assistant to pretty much build this whole dashboard, because Assistant has moved on in the meantime. And also I got the prior art of the Traitors one to say, looking at the JSON for this, go ahead and do that. And Claude can do a pretty good job of that if you download the JSON or hook it up in the right way as well. So yeah,
oh,
we are potentially moving to a world where, like, you build. I've heard a few people at work say, there's potential for what's called an ephemeral dashboard, right? So that AI looks at the state of your system, figures out what's actually going wrong with it. So, like, why the checkout flow is slow or something. And then it builds a dashboard pretty much on the fly to show you, it doesn't need it and you don't need to be monitoring it. It's just like, for this incident,
yeah.
I think we're getting there. The tools can do this, and this is fairly complicated. It's got repeating rows, it's got a variable, it's got tabs.
Actually, it narrowed down the problem. Like, hey, you can work on is the fix, and that saved the time. Obviously, we all know how the time is important.
Yeah, but I was like, I didn't build this. I just said to it, hey, I want to see the breakdown of votes by jury and televote. So you can see there, the purple bit is the professional voters, and the greenish bit is the public. And then you can see, for example, who won the popular vote. So Bulgaria, Romania got a lot of phone-in votes. Romania weren't that popular with the professionals. They're much lower down, way down here somewhere. So yeah, you can both build these dashboards, but you can just straight up ask Assistant questions about this data set. You could ask it like, find me the country where there's the biggest differential between the professional vote and the public vote. And it's like, well, hang on, why do the people not like this? Or, the other way around, I think the people really liked, where are we? Yeah, France, for example. The professionals really like France. The public, yeah, not interested. So, you start to see things that you can then drill into from these things. And again, this is like a silly example with data from a TV show, but it could be some A/B test that you've done on the website or anything. So I think good developer advocacy is telling people a fun story that has like a serious point to it.
Absolutely. That's one of the important aspects of the developer relation advocacy. You tell a story, data use cases, and how the folks turn around to your project or product you are like looking on. So one of the important aspects.
Yep. So yeah, I mean that's been my sort of time so far. What am I doing next? I'm going to build that graph visualization thing out a little bit with some more data from a game. I'm hosting more and more webinars for Grafana that just discuss these sorts of concepts, like how to build a dashboard. And I'm doing a bit of speaking at meetups. So I have spoken at a couple of the online India meetups, and then in-person ones here in the UK as well.
Yeah, if you're looking for the in-person in India, I'm happy to welcome Grafana and Friends Delhi.
Yeah, I think we just have a if we're out there doing something and it coincides, then that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of the tricks I think just as a general thing, if you want somebody from our team to come and do an in-person thing, like try and align with a conference or something so that your meetup is like around the time of that, because a lot of our team travel a lot for conferences, so they're sort of in different areas doing different things. And it's a lot easier to come and do something else while you're there than just come out to do something like a meetup.
One of the examples, KubeCon, our program manager team, Daniel and all, come to the India, Mumbai region. Great. So that was a fun element. We tried to meet him around. Actually, I wasn't in Delhi only because I had some official work, so couldn't meet him. But yes, we all knew that he would be there. The team would be there, right? So yeah, Simon, like this has been pretty amazing. Like how you not only use the different data sets, analysis, APIs, but also use some of the movies set to show you or demonstrate your project as well.
Yeah, I think I always try and leave people with one thing. So today's one thing is play.grafana.org. Go to Play, have a look what's there. There's loads of stuff. And also, if you've got a dashboard that is shareable, either you can create a public link or it uses public data sources, we'll help you recreate it on here and feature it. So just come find us in the. I think there's a showcase channel in the community Slack that's deliberately for show us what you've done and show everybody else what you've done. So I'd encourage people to use that, and it doesn't matter. You might look at some of these things and think like these are major projects that have got loads of panels that do different things. If you've got one or two panels that show off an interesting concept, so like elements of the map with say GeoJSON or something, is you can get a lot of result from not much input. Or something that we've recently added, so that GraphViz panel, like if you've found an interesting use for that people will be interested. So a good way of finding things and getting yourself visible in the community is through Play.
So I believe play.grafana.com could be a game changer for you. Just go ahead, try to build and iterate your dashboards. That's our group community Slack of Grafana Labs. Around there, you can connect with us anytime. Share your learning, share your journey, share your dashboard. You'll get the visibility. Simon, our team, and all the developer advocates are present there. If you get any question around, any doubts around, we are there to help you. Thank you, Simon. That has been a wonderful stuff. And
thank you very much.
Indeed, I need